My parents refused to attend my wedding because my future husband had a young daughter. They said I was making the biggest mistake of my life and that my future would be ruined with a single father. But on my wedding day, when his 7-year-old daughter walked down the aisle holding a sign in her hand, the entire hall went silent. The few words written on it brought tears to everyone's eyes, including my parents. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." My father said those words just 3 weeks before my wedding. He was standing in front of me, the wedding invitations were still in my hands, and his face carried the same disappointment I had seen since I was a child. But this time it wasn't about my job, my clothes, or one of my decisions. This time he was rejecting the person I had chosen to spend my life with. Only because Daniel had a 7-year-old daughter. My parents said my life would be ruined if I married a single father. They had no idea that on my wedding day, that same little girl would walk down the aisle holding a small sign in her hands. And the few words written on that sign would leave everyone silent. My name is Emma Harper. I was 31 years old and I lived near Tampa, Florida. I never imagined that my wedding day would become more of a question for my family than a celebration. But that is exactly what happened. I met my future husband, Daniel Miller, 1 year before our wedding. He was 36 years old. He was a software engineer, a quiet and thoughtful man, and above all, he was a good father. His daughter, Sophie, was 7 years old. Sophie had lost her mother 3 years earlier because of an illness. When I first met Daniel, I knew his life had not been easy. But I also saw something else. I saw how present he was for his daughter. He attended her school events. He helped her with homework. He read her bedtime stories every night. Those small things mattered to me. They showed me the kind of man he truly was. But my parents never saw those things. They only saw one thing. He's the father of another woman's child. My mother, Linda, asked only one question the first time she heard about Daniel. Was he married before? I said, yes, but his wife passed away. She stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said, Emma, you need to think about your life. I asked, what do you mean? She looked at me and said, you're young. You should start your life with someone where everything is simple. I answered, Mom, life is never completely simple. She looked away. You're making this decision because of your emotions. I didn't argue that day, because I knew she wasn't listening to me. A few days later, my father had the same conversation. He came to my house. We sat in the kitchen. The coffee on the table had already gone cold. He looked at me and said, Emma, you're accepting a responsibility that isn't yours. I asked, Sophie isn't a responsibility. She's a child. He shook his head. You don't understand. I looked at him. No, Dad. Maybe you don't understand. He became quiet. For the first time, I realized my father wasn't trying to protect me. He simply wanted me to make the decision he believed was right. The following week, my mother called me. We're not coming to the wedding. I stayed silent for a few seconds. What? She repeated. We can't accept this. I asked, you're not coming to your daughter's wedding? He answered, we're trying to stop you from making a mistake. I lowered my voice. No, Mom. You're not stopping me. You're just choosing not to stand beside me. Then I ended the call. That day I sat in my room for a long time. But I didn't change my decision. Because I knew who Daniel was. I knew who Sophie was. And I knew what kind of life I wanted. The wedding day arrived. We chose a small church for the ceremony. There weren't many people. A few of my close friends. Some of Daniel's relatives. And the people who truly wanted to celebrate our happiness. But my eyes kept moving toward the entrance. Some part of me still hoped my parents would walk through those doors. But even a few minutes before the ceremony started, they weren't there. Daniel held my hand. He quietly asked, Are you okay? I smiled. Yes. He knew I wasn't telling the truth. But he didn't push me. Then the music started. Everyone stood up. I looked toward the end of the aisle. But Daniel wasn't standing there. Sophie was. She was wearing a beautiful white dress. And she was holding a small sign. I stopped. I didn't know what it was. She slowly walked toward me. The entire room became silent. Sophie reached me. She held my hand. Then she lifted the sign. It said, Will you be my forever mom? I looked at her. For a moment I couldn't say anything. Then I hugged her. She whispered, I want you to always be with me. The room stayed completely quiet. Then I looked up. My parents were standing near the entrance. I didn't know when they arrived. My mother's hands were covering her mouth. My father was only looking at Sophie. Maybe for the first time he wasn't seeing her as a problem. He was seeing her as a little girl. After the ceremony, my mother came to me. Her eyes were red. She said, "Emma, we were wrong." I didn't say anything. She looked at Sophie. "We never tried to know her." I looked at my mother. "No. You made your decision before you ever tried." She lowered her eyes. My father stepped closer. "We thought we were protecting you," I answered. Sometimes while trying to protect someone, people end up leaving them alone. They listened. But I knew some wounds don't disappear immediately. After the wedding, my life was not what my parents expected. Was it difficult? Yes. But was it ruined? No. Building a life with Sophie was one of the most meaningful experiences I ever had. Sometimes she would come to me with small requests. "Emma, can you do my hair? Emma, can you help me with my school project?" And every time I realized something. I hadn't just chosen a husband. I had chosen a family. A few months later, my parents came to our house for the first time. Sophie opened the door. She smiled. "Grandma and Grandpa are here." My mother stopped. Maybe she didn't expect Sophie to accept her so easily. But Sophie hugged her. And that day I saw something in my mother's eyes that I had wanted for years. Understanding. Today we have been married for 4 years. Sophie is now 11 years old. She still comes to me sometimes and asks, "You are my mom, right?" And I always answer, "Yes. Always." My parents are now part of our lives. But things are not exactly the same. I have forgiven them. But I haven't forgotten that they chose not to stand beside me on one of the most important days of my life. On my wedding day, my parents thought I was making the biggest mistake of my life. They thought my future would end because I chose a single father and his daughter. But that same day, a 7-year-old girl walked toward me holding a small sign. And with just a few words, she said something that even many adults struggle to express. She didn't come into my life as a burden. She came into my life as a part of my family. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If this journey touched your heart, please support us by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more emotional stories. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful moments of love, family, and unexpected life lessons. We truly appreciate you being here with us.